KD, man. When I watch him play, it just looks way too easy.
Kevin Durant just said something that's going to follow him for the rest of his career. Asked directly what matters more, as a top dog in MVP or a championship, he picked the MVP. Not hesitated, not hedged, picked it outright. So let's break down why Kevin Durant just handed his critics the exact argument they've been waiting years for. The quote itself, Kevin Durant appeared on a recent podcast and was asked a simple, direct question. As the top guy on a team, what's more valuable, an MVP or a championship ring? His answer was clear. He argued that since only one MVP gets handed out per year, and it's a smaller, more exclusive club than champions, it actually carries more individual weight.
Durant turns, fires, count it, and looks early on here this season after retiring in the middle of last season. Durant over two, that's no matter.
Out to Durant, the miss by Cousins. Good defense by Bogdanovic, but a better.
Durant double team, finds an opening and knocks it down. Durant.
He specifically pointed out that a championship is a team accomplishment shaped by variables outside any one player's control, while an MVP reflects something closer to full personal control over the outcome. That answer immediately set off a wave of pushback across the basketball world, and the criticism isn't really about the logic of the statement itself. It's about who's saying it.
Yes, over Thompson. The lead is down to 4, and Steve Kerr takes a timeout.
Numbers and now Durant off the window.
2 days before his 19th birthday, says he's done it. I think the first time through the league is going to be intimidating.
Going back to work on V. From the corner, good again.
Rolling it inside. KD. That's a dramatic.
Nick, you have 3 boards apiece. Durant back, arcs the baseline, fade away, and hits it off.
For Makovic, you got a 1-point lead, 5 seconds to go. Durant, left lane line, pops one up from 10. Are you serious?
Giving Durant his due before diving into the criticism, it's worth being fair about what Durant actually is on the court. One of the most versatile, unguardable scorers this league has ever produced. Few players in NBA history can score from as many spots on the floor as effortlessly as he can. He's a 4-time scoring champion, a 2-time NBA champion, a 2-time Finals MVP, a regular season MVP.
Tried to get it to Durant early in transition, but Finney Smith was right on him, but it doesn't matter.
Gets a touch. Barton there defensively. Durant gets the step, the fade.
An early morning arrival, but a couple of days off before they crank it back up against
Moving his feet.
Durant. You know, sometimes you move your feet. Comparing him to LaMelo, he might.
He said, "You can blame me. Don't blame my wife for that." He told the media he's to blame for that. It's Durant.
Good thing, great community involvement. A lot of people in need.
A 12-time All-NBA selection, a former Rookie of the Year, and a 16-time All-Star. By almost any statistical measure, this is a top-tier, first-ballot Hall of Fame or some, and yet, in most all-time rankings, he consistently lands just outside the conversation for a true top 10 spot, which is exactly where this controversy actually starts.
KD working against Bridges.
Durant gets a touch way outside. Durant working his way in.
Durant on the move. Backing down Cunningham, fades and hits. High for Hood.
15 rebounds against his former club. Durant looks to muscle in on Wade, gets to the baseline and gets the...
Lakers have a foul.
The how you won it problem, the criticism of Durant's championships has never really been about whether he won, it's about the circumstances. He left a genuinely good Oklahoma City team to join a Golden State roster that had just won 73 regular season games and produced the league's first unanimous MVP. His former team then came back from a 3-1 deficit to eliminate the very roster he departed.
Against Gary Trent Jr. at the elbow, just in his territory.
Durant back to the basket. Murphy the third defending.
KD backs down on the turnaround, just raising up.
The glass, offensive rebounds,
swear word in his life. And he did not drink either. He was a teetotaler.
Time too, his team down 11 and the clock starting to become more the Thunder's friend, especially with Durant.
The double move, step back, knocks it down.
They're in the half court, so a big aspect is going to be to make sure to maintain that focus.
Durant hangs. Soft touch and the foul.
Asking for the ball at the free throw line of Irving.
The little lean back created some separation with his long arms, able to get it off.
And one of the most talked about collapses in NBA history. The counterfactual is what stings the most. Had Durant stayed in Oklahoma City and eventually broken through for a championship there, this entire conversation likely doesn't exist. Instead, critics argue that joining an already historic team fundamentally changes how those two championships get remembered. Is the MVP even a fair comparison? Here's where the actual substance of Durant's argument gets challenged. The MVP award has long been criticized as one of the most inconsistent, media-driven honors in the sport. The criteria shifts constantly depending on the voting body, narrative trends, and even voter fatigue towards certain players. It's entirely possible to be the best player in the league in a given season and simply not win because the story around another player was more compelling to voters that year. That inconsistency is part of why so many legends have publicly dismissed the award's importance relative to winning it all. Dirk Nowitzki has said outright that individual awards mean nothing compared to championships. Giannis Antetokounmpo has said he didn't want to be called an MVP again until he'd actually won a title. Joel Embiid has said he'd trade his MVP for a championship ring without hesitation. That list extends further. Several Hall of Famers across NBA history have echoed the same sentiment when asked directly. How history actually remembers players. There's a broader argument here about legacy and memory. Ask a casual fan how many championships Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, or Larry Bird won, and the answer comes instantly. Ask that same fan how many MVPs those same players won, and there's usually a pause. Championships tend to stick in the public's memory in a way individual awards simply don't. Winning a title also has a way of elevating players into conversations they might not otherwise be part of. Role players who happen to be on championship rosters get remembered fondly for decades, sometimes disproportionately to their statistical impact, simply because they were part of a winning team at the right moment. Championships add a kind of career value that raw stats and individual hardware often can't replicate. Why this feels personal for Durant. The read from critics is straightforward. Durant is drawing this distinction now because he's aware of where he currently sits in most all-time rankings. And it isn't quite where his statistical Ursum alone would suggest. The argument goes that if he'd won a championship in a smaller market, without the super team context, this entire GOAT-adjacent conversation would likely look very different for him. There's also a pointed counter to Durant's own logic. If a championship really is less meaningful to him than individual recognition, that raises the obvious question of why he chose to leave a contending roster in the first place to join one of the most stacked teams basketball has ever seen. The math on that particular argument doesn't fully add up. What actually separates winning it all, the deeper counterpoint to Durant's framing, is that winning a championship genuinely requires a level of sustained greatness that MVP voting simply doesn't measure. Postseason adjustments, health, matchup problem solving, and elevating performance against the best competition over and over across multiple rounds. Regular season dominance and playoff dominance are related, but they aren't the same skill. That's part of why historically dominant regular season teams that fall short in the playoffs are almost never remembered as truly the greatest, regardless of how gaudy their regular season numbers were. The postseason gets weighted differently in how history remembers a team or a player, a pattern that shows up again and again across NBA history whenever a dominant regular season squad comes up short in June. At the end of the day, this isn't really a debate about which award is objectively harder to win statistically. It's a debate about legacy, memory, and what people actually value when they look back on a career decades later. Do you think Kevin Durant is right that the MVP deserves more respect than it gets? Or do you think this is really about protecting his own place in the GOAT conversation? Drop your take in the comments. If this take got you fired up, smash that like button, subscribe for more NBA breakdowns, and I'll see you in the next one.